call me overly optimistic here. I think you're doing them a favor by trying to sell them something, right? But that's often not how people think about sales. They think about it as intruding or bothering. But I think if you approach it correctly, you're actually helping people.
Welcome to Frank Growth. I'm Jason Shafton. I run growth consulting firm Winston Francois. Around here, we tell the truth about growing, the good, the bad, and the can't say it out loud ugly. Every episode, we get tactical with the operators, investors, and builders on what works, what breaks, and what to do next. No fluff, no vanity metrics, no hustle theater, just signal. This is Frank Growth. Let's get into it. A lot of founders dread sales. They think it's sleazy, manipulative, or just plain terrifying. But here's the truth. If you can't sell, you can't build. Today, we're going deep on how to rewire that fear, turning founders into authentic, confident sellers who can scale their startup without burning out. My guest is John Kennelly. He runs the I Hate Sales cohort program, coaching founders to sell without sounding like a stereotypical salesperson. John, welcome to Frank Growth.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I've known you a couple of years, and I got to say, I'm excited for this conversation because I am exactly bullseye in your ideal customer profile demo. I hate sales, John. I hate doing it, and I do it all day long, and it's the worst.
You've managed to build a much bigger business than most people do who hate sales. So you're powering through nonetheless. I mean, I think they honestly overlook, they overcomplicate, right? I think there's a myth out there that salespeople have something innately that enables them to do that which other people can't.
You're saying it's not genetic.
No, I think if you can have a conversation, you can sell, right? At its most fundamental, if you have friends, if you have a significant other who you convince to marry you or something, you can sell, right? You've gotten the message across to other people that you have something worth spending time with, right? Person, call me overly optimistic here. I think you're doing them a favor by trying to sell them something, right? But that's often not how people think about sales. They think about it as intruding or bothering. But I think if you approach it correctly, you're actually helping people by selling them something. Again,
I think that's a huge.
Maybe I'm overly optimistic, but that's
no. I think it's an unlock. I mean, if you tell yourself, "I'm not selling, I'm helping," I think that's an unlock. All right, so let's talk about that mindset shift. What do founders need to do to get there? They just dread it. They don't want to do it. It's one thing to say, "Oh yeah, I'm just helping," but what are some of the things that you're teaching folks to do?
Well, I think there's equal parts strategy and kind of psychology to it. I think first of all, I think getting comfortable with the reality that if you don't do it, you will be searching for a job. That's just math, right? If you don't figure out how to sell your product, it doesn't matter how good your software is. It doesn't matter how pretty your deck is. If you can't sell it, you're going to have to figure out a different way to make money.
What do founders need to do in their head to go from I'm selling to I'm helping to actually putting into practice? I now can sell things.
I think it starts with curiosity. I think the best salespeople are very, very curious and they genuinely want to understand what makes the person on the other side of the phone or computer or table tick. What makes their customer tick? What keeps them up at night, right? What's the problem they really have? What's the impact of that problem? If you can get there, right? If you can become amazing at asking questions and learning, the analogy I use a lot of time is think about the last time you were at a cocktail party or a dinner party or some sort of social gathering and you met somebody you thought was super, super interesting. Did they drone on about themselves for 20 minutes straight and tell you a bunch of stories you don't give a shit about? Or did they ask you a ton of questions about yourself? Yeah. Almost always it's the latter. When you come away from meeting someone and you feel like they were super interesting, it's almost never because you learned a lot about them. It's because they gave you the space to talk about yourself and you found that super intriguing. Sales is exactly the same. The best salespeople really get to the root of what's keeping their customers up, and then they build for that.
I love that. Yeah, what you're describing, this curiosity, I also think in marketing and growth speak, we think about empathy, user empathy, right? You're just describing the fact that why don't you just pay attention to this other person's experience and try to connect with it better. Let's talk about like pitching and being authentic. So what makes a sales pitch truly resonate and drive kind of that conversion without feeling forced, inauthentic car salesman?
Yeah, I think, the foundation again is the discovery, is the curiosity, right? Making sure you're speaking to the right person who you have a pretty good sense has your problem,
Hmm.
right? That the problem that you know how to solve, rather. Starting there, right? I think I would never pitch without doing discovery first, right? Now, in lieu of that, there's obviously a lot of, with all the information we have available about our potential customers online through LinkedIn and other platforms, you can do discovery, async, right? You can just kind of spend a lot of time looking on someone's website, looking on their LinkedIn, and probably get pretty close to understanding if they have the problem that you solve. Ideally, you're doing discovery like this live with someone. And then from there, it's being, I would say like very surgical about laying out how you can solve that problem for them, right? And like I said, hopefully you can do this discovery live, but if you can't, right, like I'll use my own business as an example, right? What I sell is very much for people who have never had a sales job before, right? If you've gone through even the most kind of introductory sales training in a corporate job, you don't really need what I'm selling, because a lot of what I sell is stuff I learned 12 years ago, the first time I was a salesperson doing sales training. I guess it's like 14 years ago now. Holy shit.
Yeah.
But the point is, what I sell, if you're not in my ICP, it
Right.
is a colossal waste of time, right? So I can know by going on someone's LinkedIn if they've ever had a sales job before,
Mhm.
and I'm staying away from that person,
Right.
right? They don't need my help.
I think about the coach I've used, a good friend of mine who's a very talented sales leader, and she's coached me to basically get to know as quickly as possible. The word NO, right? This person is not a fit. They're a no. And you don't have to make them say it, but just qualify them and get them out of your funnel before you waste a bunch of time trying to sell them a thing that they don't need. The other thing that it sparked for me as you were saying that is this concept of the unsell, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but like somebody who might be a good fit, but they've gone dark on you, they've ghosted you. I have this email that I send that I've learned from a couple sales folks I worked with, which is like, hey, it seems like you don't need anything anymore. So I'm just sending a note to say I'm here if you need something in the future. And 90+% of the time gets a response. It's like, no, don't wait, wait, I do still need something, right? And it's such a funny reverse psychology thing. So as a non-seller, when the first time I did that, it felt like this huge unlock. So let's talk about those unlocks. So, like, what's for people that are kind of afraid to start, to your point, like avoiding touching the deck or the pitch or anything, and they go work on these other things. I'm going to change my website again or whatever. Like, how can you spark that early momentum? What is the kind of first step, the baby steps that you coach people to take?
I would say reframe what you call it, right? I think calling something a sales call inherently puts pressure on it for some people. So
Mm.
I would say start interviewing potential customers. Say, hey, I'm working on XYZ product and I'm interviewing leaders like you to understand how they do their job, right? And truly have a conversation, which is set up as an interview, where that is all you're doing. You're asking potential customer of yours a bunch of questions about how they run their business and any places where they're stuck.
Yeah. My favorite version
Worst,
of this is what we're doing right now. You're not a prospect, but I fully intend to invite people that I would like to work with onto this program.
yep. And
Why
and
not?
and this is the like most official way of doing it, because this is a produced podcast.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a podcast to do this. Like
Yeah.
you can just do it. You're just allowed to do it, and people are welcome to say no, right? But I
I see
think
this all the
taking
time on social media. You can just do things.
yeah, but you can just interview people, and
Yeah.
a lot of people will just say yes, right? I think
People want to
another
talk
thing,
to other people. They want to share their stories. They want to be listened to your earlier point.
and people want to help, right? I think that's another
Yeah, if you
the
ask for
first
help, give
sales
me feedback on this product
the
versus
first
like, let
job
me sell
I
you
ever
something.
the first sales job I ever had, I'll never forget. This was back when everyone had the same Cisco desk phone. If you're of a certain age, you know exactly
I
what
know the
phone I'm
phone.
describing. You had it, I'm sure, at some point. when I cold called back when people all sat at desks and everyone cold called other people who were all at their desks, cold calling is making a big time
It's
comeback.
back.
That's a separate, I guess.
Cold calling's back. So people's curiosity will get the better of them sometimes. But I think these are not manipulations if, again, the thing you're selling is useful and solves a real problem, right?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the caveat to everything I
Yeah.
just said, is that
Yeah.
like at the end of the rainbow here,
Use the force for good.
yeah, it has to be something that is actually, giving someone more value than they're giving you in terms of money, right? If you do all of that and at the end you sell some snake oil lead system that doesn't work, then this whole thing is for naught.
Yeah.
Well, and that actually all roads lead back to discovery.
Yes.
Speaking of whim of the customer, if you get feedback from a customer that they want something you don't offer today, ask them why. Help educate yourself and them on why they think they want this, right? Oh, interesting. You want this. Is there a problem you're having that we're not solving right now? Why do you want this? Sometimes people want an additional bells and whistles just because they think it sounds cool. And if you ask a few more questions, you push back a little bit instead of just saying, "Oh yeah, we'll get right on that." Right? There's obviously, there's a mentality of, "Oh well, the customer's always right. We'll just whatever they want, we'll do." Okay, that's fine to a point, but I think it's okay to push back and ask them, "Where's this coming from? What's not working today that's causing you to ask for this?" Right? Go like a couple layers deeper on that feedback.
Find the root of the problem and try to solve for that. Yeah. So let's talk about identifying that ideal customer profile, that ICP. What are the things that you're teaching and coaching and helping founders who want to become sellers do to really understand who they should be selling to, and what are the steps they should take?
Yeah, I think the number one thing here is, especially early, be specific. And when I say be specific, I don't mean, oh yeah, we sell our product to tech companies. I mean, we sell our product to US based tech companies between 50 and 100 employees who have at least 4 engineers and have been in business for less than 2 years, right? Like that's the difference between a good ICP and a bad ICP. And at the beginning, your ICP should be one. Your goal at the beginning of a business is to get one person
Yeah.
to give
And
you
then how do you
money.
get the next 10 or
Your
the next one?
your original ICP, right? Especially in the venture world, people get obsessed with TAM and SAM and SOM. Like
Yeah.
your initial ICP is one. How can I get one person to give me money for this? And then 2, and then 10, and then, go from there, right? But if you start too high level, it's going to be impossible to find the needle in the haystack. And also the concept of an ICP is fluid, right?
Yeah.
It should be fluid,
Doesn't just
right?
stay fixed.
It's a living, breathing thing. And as your business grows, right, the sort of, example I use of tech companies versus that very specific type of tech company, as your product grows and evolves, the type of customer you can help will evolve with it. And that's okay. But if you don't get super specific early, then you can't get super broad later because you'll go out of business.
Yeah, that makes sense. When we talk about reporting and tracking, obviously founder-led sales, you're doing it by yourself. You don't have a sales team. You're the seller. What's the metric or behavior that founders need to measure to understand how they're doing when it comes to selling and sales?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I probably over index on this. I would resist the urge to get way too organized too early on, right? Like, if you don't have any customers, you do not need a CRM because the first word in CRM is customer, right? So we don't need
Relationship management.
we do not need a CRM yet. Like you just need, the first metric is how many people talked to you this week? How many people that are potential customers agreed to speak with you for 30 minutes this week? That's like number one. And then as things evolve, it's what percentage of potential customers agreed to sign up for whatever you're selling, right? Like close rate, right? A very basic close rate of just like, how many people am I talking to? What
And
percentage
how many
of
of
those
those did I
people?
close?
Yep. That,
Love
and
that.
start
Simple.
there. Yeah. Everything should start very, very simple. Then, as you start to get some traction, add a lot more sophistication on top of it. But going back to people are wanting to do anything that isn't actually selling, what ends up happening a lot of times is people add a lot of these systems and tracking and all this stuff before there's anything to track.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. All right, so let's talk about what you're doing now to help people do this. So you've started this thing that I love that's called I Hate Sales. Great name, by the way. Big fan.
Appreciate it.
Talk about what it is. What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, so it came out of trying to do the opposite for about a year and a half, where I had this other name for my business. It was like totally nonsensical. It just like nobody could figure out what I did. My branding and messaging was all around helping founders tell their story. And I took painstaking efforts to never use the word sales in talking about what I did. And then one day I was having a conversation with a, kind of friend, confidant, who was like, man, people hate sales. Like, why don't you just talk more about that? Shit, you're right. People do hate sales. And I think it took me way too long to figure that out because I don't hate it. I think maybe I just didn't understand how viscerally people feel about it who have never done it. So then it just kind of snowballed into this thing where I started to talk to more and more really brilliant founders and business owners who couldn't sell their way out of a wet paper bag, right? And so then it started to turn into, okay, there's like clearly a market here to teach non-sellers the fundamental kind of sales skills, right? When I first kind of rebranded the business in January of this year of 2025, I was doing consulting for founders who had gotten some early traction. They'd gotten some leads from their network and kind of warm connections, and they hadn't actually had to do any like pure selling. They sort of just had, leads land on their desk and people that they knew from former jobs or what have you become customers. So maybe they were doing 500 to 750K in annual revenue, and they were now plateauing. They needed to get over the million in revenue hump. I would come in and consult with them and try to help them build some of that outbound motion that they had never done before. But in the process of doing kind of outreach for that business, I came across way more founders who hadn't even gotten to that point yet, who were stuck at essentially zero, who needed much more kind of fundamental early sales help. And that's where the cohort came from. I just realized,
so you spun up this program to basically get groups of those founders together and help them learn how to sell.
And exactly, and learn how to sell and do it at a like way more affordable price point than the consulting work I was doing, because it's like, it sounds obvious now that I say it out loud, but if someone's struggling with sales, they probably aren't flush with cash. So you got to find a way to create something for them that is not thousands of dollars in monthly recurring expenses. And yeah, that's the whole point of the cohort is just to get people a little bit of like accelerant on that early stage. A lot of people are just kind of stuck in the mud because they don't know what to do next. My job is to kind of shove them off a cliff with some support, obviously.
Parachute or one of those like sailing, like flying suits.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
So John, where can folks find you online? Anything you'd like to offer or share to kind of reach out to people that are listening that might need this kind of help?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my website is ihatesales.co. People can email me, john@ihatesales.co. And for sure, anyone who sees this and kind of comes through Frank Growth, there's definitely kind of a special offer I can provide that I'll happy to share with anyone who reaches out. And I'd love to really just trying to help as many founders as I can never have to get another job again. That's really the goal for me.
Here's the quick 3 takeaways for founders who dread sales. Number 1, reframe sales as helping, powered by curiosity. If you can hold a real conversation and ask great questions, you can sell. Treat sales as uncovering what keeps the customer up at night, then solve for that. 2, discovery, then pitch, and then qualify hard. Don't run a boilerplate demo, do live discovery or solid asynchronous research. Focus only on the few things they need, and then be ruthless about the fit and get to know fast. Let misfits churn and start with a hyper-specific ICP, even if there's just one ideal buyer, before you broaden. 3, do the simple work that moves deals. Skip the deck, website, CRM, busy work early. Instead, book interviews, not sales calls. Ask for help to open doors and track just 2 numbers: qualified conversations per week and close rate. Everything else is secondary. If you do just one thing this week, write down the top 3 objections you're hearing from customers and prospects over and over again, and turn each one into a question you'll ask proactively on your next discovery call. All right, that's Frank Growth. If this gave you something you can use this week, follow the show and share it with one founder who needs to hear it. I'm Jason Shafton from Winston Francois. We help companies build sustainable, repeatable growth operating systems with a proven approach. The show notes and takeaways are in the description. Be frank and keep growing.